Move this junk out of the way. Hey, how's it going this morning? Welcome to the Dutchman's Wood Shack. Merry Christmas, Happy Holidays, and all that good stuff. Today, I'm spinning some, I'll have to show you. Boy, I've got stuff everywhere right now. I'm spinning some blocks like this. This is off a pallet, so that's to use these to separate. You know, you got a slat on top here and slat on the bottom, skids. That's the one that goes in between the skids. So that's what I'm doing right now. So I'm turning this. I had my friend Keith bring this in for I see him in the mornings, and he's a real estate guy. He comes in with this box of stuff. I said, what is this? The next thing I know is he goes, can you turn something out of this? And I said, yeah, I'll try it. I mean, worst case scenario, it just won't work, right? Well, the only thing bad about this is it has some staples in it. I tried to get out as many as I could, but the staples were aluminum, so they're not going to do too much damage to my tools. Oh, hey, Kenya. Welcome all the way across there. Awesome. Well, thanks for watching me, guys. If you haven't subscribed to me, go ahead. Okay, so first thing I'm doing now is I'm going to take and make a groove in here. I have to figure out how far I want to go. Now, this thing, I made a curve. I don't know if you can see that there, but I made a curve. Okay, so now this little curve here, I don't ever want to overshoot this because this is probably in about a 1/4 inch. So what I usually do is I aim this thing at a corner like this, and I shoot for the middle, and I try to stay away from this when I'm gouging. When I get into the bottom as far as I want to go, then I worry about coming back, what I call back, in my version is backwashing with different tools. So I'm going to do this now. Now I'm going to come back with my CI5 carbide tip. Now, if I want to, I can take this off and not use this anymore. And I might, after I get to a certain point, we'll see what happens. But I'm playing around with this a little bit. It's kind of an experiment. This wood that's glued together in segments is mahogany, I believe. But it had some really good color to it, and I added some wipe-on poly to the other one. I made another one just a straight cup. It really looks good, so. You know, this is a CI2, and this also has a limit to it. So a lot of these have placards or stickers on them. Some of them wiped off. But with this one, that's how far you can go in. Maximum overhang, which is basically that's as far in you want to go. Now, roughly, when I'm using this, I like to go in half the distance is about as far as I like to go because it does have a tendency to do this bit. So, you guys ever have a lathe? If in Africa, if you don't have those in Kenya, you can make a lathe. There's ways to make it without motorized stuff, but you'd have to use your foot. And here in America, couple hundred years ago, that's what they used. They didn't use motorized stuff like in 1800s, early 1800s, till until they started doing iron. Um, and that's kind of fun because you can make your own there with what you got. And I bet you have some really exotic wood there. And then you can strong wood. Then you could take and turn something like this. See, now that one turned out to be, it's turning out really good. It's sharp. So my other carbide tips are a little bit dull. I can tell just by looking at it, the way I'm using it. It wants to take and not put out as much wood chips. Now there's another way of doing this too. Okay, so you can take this before you even start gouging this out, taking all this wood out. You can basically take a drill bit this wide, what they call a Forstner bit, and drilling the hole all the way into the depth you want it. See, and then that'll save you a little extra time. The only problem with a Forstner bit is they dull up fast. I have no way to sharpen it. So, and they're expensive. They're expensive. Something that's about this big, it's about an inch and a half, inch and a quarter. $50 for that. Now, you see you're getting in there a little bit. I figure I'm about here. So I'm halfway down. What I want to do is actually go down to just this last row, right about here. So it'll be about half an inch, about 3/4 of an inch between the bottom and here. And then I'll round it out. So with this, what I'll do is I'll pull this out, take this off. Have to move everything around like that. So I won't need that anymore. But I'll double check, make sure I got this tight. I always stop every once in a while and make sure this is tight. Now the downfall about this is And you have to remember this when you're working on this. These things here, you see that? It's hard to show it. There it is. See how there's a bow right here? You see that? There's a gap, right? This is not perfectly cylindrical. Unfortunately, I have to make sure when I turn this around and sand this, I have to make sure these little marks, these indentations, um, I have to spend a lot of time sanding it. Sometimes you don't see it, and unfortunately, I let it go by and I don't see it. It's it's part of the process, not a big deal. Um, that's the inside part of these teeth. Now you could do, if you wanted to, um, not with this one. If I was doing something that was back in here, I could turn it around and do the inside, and it won't be as visible, but you still have that issue. So, do I care right now? No, no. See, this is what they call a Barracuda two chuck, and I don't like. I'm not really sold on it. I mean, I've had it for a while. It works. You know, I'm thinking about getting another one, a different kind. But there's so many different ways to do this. Now, I'm gonna gouge this out here in a minute. But here's another thing. Now you can move this wherever you want to put it. And see, that saves you time. See, when I first started out doing this, I would do spindle to spindle. I would do, in other words, I would do the drive shaft to this on the other end of that, and a tool stock. And then I would take and I could use, I would have to put a bevel in the back because of the hole that these things that leaves you, because it leaves you about a quarter of an inch indentation in there. So you got to remember that when you go to finish it off. But you know, anybody that uses a lathe, they'll figure it out eventually. No, it turned out pretty good. It's easy, right? So you get in there and you can break it off. Snapola. Anybody that hasn't prescribed or subscribed to my channel, subscribe, then I'll let you know when I'm on. Now, as you can see, I made there quite a ways, right? Okay, so these in here, it's just almost a little bit straight back. I have it gouged inside here because of this. So I wanted to wait until I get past this rim before I started going back in there. So I'm gonna measure. If I could find my tape measure. Okay, so this says 2 inches, right at 2 inches. So that's, I've got about ½ an inch to go, and then I'll be flat where I want it. And then I could take this. Now, the other thing is you could take, I've got a smaller one that can stick in here. And then I've got some different tools I use. Now, these here are, I believe it's negative rake on here. But these tools I can use in here to get in underneath that curve. And see how they're curved? Now the difference is workability. Well, I call it workability. This is my language, okay? You got about 3 inches to work from about here to about where my thumb is. Realistically, that's the safest place, because see what happens is you get on the rounded end, it's easy to turn. Yeah, my wrist has a tendency to turn a little bit, so sometimes it's not right, but when you want it flat, and I have a tendency to twist my arm sometimes. For those who, it's kind of like my golf game, it sucks. Anyway, so you can see this, it's pitched at an angle. Most of the stuff that you use is going to be pitched at an angle. So you want to work it in a certain spot where you're going to get your teeth. Now the thing is, you got between here and here to work. You go past here, it's going up at you. There's a sweet spot in there. What I look for is that sweet spot. I kind of say if it feels good, then I'm good, right? Kind of a strange way of saying it, but the straight edge ones that I've been using, this has got a negative rake on it too. It's a little warm, but it's getting to the point where I need to change the bit. You can feel it. And the way it's operating, when it starts chattering, it's kind of like that, you know. If you guys have questions or comments, just holler. Now this one's the same thing. You have this much to work with. From about right here to here is like 6 inches to work with. Typically, you don't want to go more than halfway if you don't have to. So if you're in here doing this and you're in there more than halfway, what happens is it does this bit. So as close as I am, I only have to go a ½ an inch further, so I get it as close as I can get. The problem with this tool rest is that it can't go in here, it's too wide here. You actually need something that's skinnier. And I do have another tool that I can put in there, but it's too big for that too. When you do small things, it's kind of the thing that you have to worry about a little bit, but you find out how to do it yourself usually. You gotta play around with your lathe and figure it out. now you can see I'm probably close to where I want to be. Ooh. Yippers, right there. Perfect. Now, a couple of reasons why I say this is perfect is, okay, so I'm just a smidge over under the bottom piece. You got 1, 2, 3, 4. So the fourth piece, I'm probably just about an eighth of an inch into it. Now, a couple of reasons why I say, when you get to the bottom, you want to kind of keep an eye on stuff. Okay, so I have to take this out eventually. So you can turn it around and go like this. See? Now, the idea here is, you want it flat or do you want it concaved? So, what I'll do is probably take and just put a little bit of a bevel or ring on this. But I'm going to do something first. I used to, as a kid, call bolts and nuts, notes and butts, notes and butts. Talking backwards. My own language. Anyway, I just want to line this up to get it to where I want it. Good, that's even. There was a little bit of a miss there. Okay, so now what you do here is you tell yourself, do you want a sharp curve or do you want to just have it beveled? So I've got this thing in my head. I like these little beveled things. So what I'm going to do is I'm going to take it after I fix this. Again, I'm going to use this. Bring it up just a hair. You just put a little bit of a bevel on it. That works. And then what I could do, if I wanted to make it more of a reveal, I could take and put put that gouge in there a little bit more. That's kind of like what I like. Now, first thing I'm going to do is you got a sandpaper, baby, sandpaper. I'm not trying to use this. Now I like using these kind of sandpapers because you can get up underneath them. They're a little bit easier to use sometimes than a bigger sheet. And I think this is 120 maybe. I don't know. It's a little bit softer. It's not as rough. This wood is really soft. Say mahogany, it's not exactly a really. I don't want to say it's an easy wood to carve up real fast. The problem is you have to keep in mind when you're doing something like this, how much sanding you're doing. You don't know, because you see that rings right there? The idea is to get them out. I think I'm going to use a rubber sandpaper. Yep. Okay, so I got 60 grit. Now, I don't need to spend a lot of time with this. I'm just getting the rough stuff off of it. Because you can see now, I'm trying to get the rings out of there just a little bit more. Yeah, some of my tools are dull. I have to sharpen them. Okay, so now, what's the only problem with that? Good thing I have a broom. Oh, you want to come over? Come on. Anyway, I gotta clean my floor up. Now what I'll do is just roughly go over this. Now the other thing is too, you can get your finger caught in here. It happened to me. When I was doing, don't use a rag. If you're doing friction polish, don't use a cloth rag. Use a paper towel, because what will happen is it'll grab you. I cut the inside of that. Same thing goes with your tools. If you're using tools on there, you got to be careful. Now, you have to remember too, you're going against the grain. So there's going to be some after sanding where you're going, you're going to have to do cosmetic stuff with your palm sanders or your hand. A lot of times it's just with the hand. So I'll take this off, and so I'll show you what I was talking about, with the marks it makes. See that? I don't know if you can see that. See the marks it makes? So, unfortunately, it did the same thing here a little bit, but see, I can sand it off easier. So, at the end of the day, I used to take duct tape and put duct tape in there, but it only worked for so long. So what I'm going to do here is, it doesn't take much here to straighten that out there. Yeah, see, it's pretty much bigger. Now, the tricky part is, I could leave it this way, the way it is, instead of me trying to gouge in further. Let me see. I have a set of calipers. I'm gonna zero it out. Trying to get this to sit right, and anyway. Shit. He didn't like that, did it? There we go. So you got it set at 0, 0, right? So now you can use this for all kinds of stuff. You can use it for outside, inside. There's a little bent there, I don't know why. But, so what I do is I go in here and I go like that. You see, that's about 19, what is it? Right there, it's about 19. Then it gets out here, 17. Lip is a little bit, 17, that's cool. So when you get here, that's 28. Okay, so the transition is right about there. So you want to go 18 all the way across. See, 18 is like a quarter inch, I think. Yeah, it's about a quarter inch. And you could go thinner. I mean, right here was a little bit thinner if you want. But I don't know. Sometimes, depending on what I'm doing and the wood I'm cutting, I like to use. I like to keep it between a quarter and an eighth of an inch. Usually, it's about an eighth of an inch, but that's finished. That's finished. Well, I want to thank everybody that's on here. First off, I know I can't pronounce your names because I can't twist my tongue, but thank you for watching, by the way. There's a lot of new people in there. If you haven't subscribed to me, go ahead. Every time you subscribe, or just the one time, it'll tell you when I'm on. If you don't want to know when I'm on, then don't subscribe. Okay, so now I was talking about this. All right, here's this thing you have to bring out a little bit further. You have to adjust this. That's the other thing, too. You'll find yourself readjusting and adjusting a lot. And it's just part of the thing, you know, it's part of the job of doing this. Anyway, now, like I was saying, there's this part right here. You don't want to go and try to stay at least from here this way. Because what will happen is, again, you'll do this because it's rounded. So. Now that was this wood is pretty easy to go through, so you gotta be careful how much you take off at one time. Okay, so there's a little bit of a lip in there, which is okay, and that's, again, this goes back to how much you want to put on there. Okay, so that's 20 still from the bottom here, that's 30, it goes down to right about there is 23, then it drops off considerably. Now you take a look at it, okay, you see the ring around where the bottom piece of wood is, and it kind of bows in a little bit. I like to round my bowls out. Some people like to keep them going flat and then flat inside, but I like to have mine a little bit round. If people want it completely flat in the back, I could do that, but I like doing it this way, so I'm going to do it a little bit more. Now you saw that, right? You saw that bouncing around on me. And it's a common thing. That's a common thing. For you guys that are watching, please subscribe. I got 23 people in there. That's cool. Awesome. Okay, we'll do this again. Yeah, it's cobby in there. I think. Let's see what it looks like now. Right about here. Right about there. Little more. I think I'm going to use my other one. Right there is one, right? Right there. Okay, I see that. So I'll try this. Okay, so that worked out pretty good there. I gotta find my, oh, there it is. So now this is when you start fine tuning the inside. Now, when I'm doing this, I make sure in my head how far I want to go. Because I'm pretty confident when I sand this, I'm going to probably take off about 1/8 of an inch. You know, that's probably usually between a couple 16ths and eighth of an inch. The softer woods, I always allow, I draw rings on the outside part of it, and I usually allow myself between 1/8 and 1/4 sometimes, depending on the wood. And these rings that are in here, eventually you will get them out. You might have to go back and forth a couple times with your tools. Just barely. And that's the thing. The trick of it is you just barely want to skim it. You want it to be as smooth as the baby's butt, right? So you got to really play with it for a while. Sometimes my biggest problem is patience. I got patience in a dragster. I gotta go. Sometimes that could be a highway to the danger zone too. So, and you can see there's a little bit of a ring right there. Now the only thing is when you're doing transitioning from segment pieces glued to segment pieces, sometimes, especially in soft woods, they tend to want to drag your piece into that groove when you glue them. Even though the glue is tight, for some reason it's found a way to be a pain in the butt. And so, and again, it's you know, for me, it's learning experience to kind of judge yourself on stuff. And you know, I can watch other people do certain things a certain way, and then I've got my own way, and nobody's way is right or wrong. It's just whatever's comfortable. I mean, if I was teaching a class, I'd just say go for it. I don't know, it's probably why I'm not a teacher. But see, there's burrs. Now this is a good classic example. You got this end and this end. These are the burrs that are on the cut end of the wood. And that's where you have to do hand sanding this way. When you're turning this way, you're just dragging the wood. and a lot of this wood likes to pit. So what you got to do is basically go across the grain. Now I've got another one in here I could use, and I've used this a lot of times, but it's kind of discombobulated right now. But there's another one in there like this. It's a little bit bigger, but this thing does kind of a spin on it, and a lot of times that helps me out because it'll go against the grain. It'll go against the way you're doing it because it's pretty easy shot at doing stuff, and it smooths out a little bit better. Same thing with this. It's spongy, so yeah, you can never have enough sanding tools. That's the other thing. So, like right here, as you can see, I don't know if you guys can see that, how the difference between the wood. Yeah, see, it shows you there. You know, right here, more. That's where you have to take it off and do hand sanding or using your electric sanders, because, or you could use your drill press. But remember, this thing is going counterclockwise, all right, like that. And all the wood that you glued together is like this. Now the side grains, which is this part, is the easier grains of sand. It doesn't have the cut ends. The cut ends are always the ones that are soft and are burled. It's like burlap sack, a piece of sandpaper. And when you're turning it, you're pulling it out. You're pulling it out. And it's hard to see. I wish I had it. You might be able to see it. Right. Well, you know what? I'm going to take it off anyway, so. Okay, so you see all that? And it goes for the other side too. So you got the same thing inside and outside. Oh, hello, hello. Help me, Mr. Bill. Okay, so the other thing was I was showing you. See, the teeth make these marks right here. That's because they're only holding on these corners like this. And I never did like the idea of that. And when I was doing it spindle to spindle before I had this chuck, I actually managed to do this where I didn't have to spend a lot of time sanding. I just had to get this down far enough, and then I would take this on the drill press over there and use a grinding pad on it, sanding pad. So this one's going to turn out pretty good. It's unfortunately it's got a lot more burrs on it than the other one did. That's this part of what I'm talking about. This part. So now, typically, if this was bigger, you would go this way. You would go this way, and you wouldn't have as much of a problem because you'd only have it on the top and the bottom. And I suspect I could do it if I took two pieces and glued them together. I could probably make something halfway decent out of it. You know, I mean, I could. Kind of do this. And make it like so you do that. Now this one's a little bit smaller. Okay, so this one here, don't know what I'll do with that. See, it's kind of hard to do it this way because then you have to cut that much off of it. You have to cut the corners by the time you're through, you're like this. So it would actually be better to do it this way. But see, that's the thing where you have to think, what do you want to do with this? Toss it. Now this is the typical 2x4, 4x4 piece, and this is what normally you have on pallets in between slats. You have the skid, and everything is slanted on top of it, right? When you put the forks in for the forklift. If you were to do it this way, it would be easier because remember I was showing you the difference between that and this. Well, that's where the burr sight is, like on this part. All right. So if you're smart, instead of doing it this way, well, if I shouldn't say smart. If you don't want to have to spend the time sanding, you do it this way, right? And then this won't be as bad. It's most of the time you'll have more of a pain trying to do it inside than outside, but that way it saves yourself some time. Now again, this is just like this. Mahogany and pine are very porous, very easy woods to go through. Doesn't take much, I guess, to screw them up. It takes you a lot more time to sand and make a perfection out of it, but and somebody will say, well, your tools. Well, that's true. Your tools got to be sharp, but with something like this, when you have engraves, and it's self-induced. Okay, again, they'll tell you when you take a log and you turn it, you want to go against the pith. You don't want to go with the pith. And the problem with that, though, is again, you're going against the grain. If you go with the grain and you have the grain going this way like you normally would on a piece of wood, and you're doing it this way, it's a lot easier. So it just depends on the wood and how knowledgeable you are about what you're doing. Don't let it stop you. It never stopped me. So anyway, I want to get off. I'm going to be working on my trains, so I got to clean myself up here. Hang on a second. Well, that's the other thing. I love having this air hose in here. And I got that air hose back there. It's an automotive product that you would normally use in a garage or cars, repair shop. And it's a lot easier than trying to wind stuff up and do things. I have a compressor on the garage too, and it's just wrapping around the handle. Well, I'm going to change that one day, maybe next year, and put it up in the ceiling so that I can pull it down. It's a lot easier. So anyway, I want to thank you guys for watching me. Questions or comments, please leave them. And I want to thank everybody that has commented with me in the past. And I know I'm missing a lot of people. Don't know why, but if you guys think I'm interesting, pass me on, please. I want to teach people how easy it is to do turning. I'm not so much into the perfection thing, because I know I'm still learning. I'm always going to be learning. But I want to show people how to make their own Christmas presents. Now, this doesn't take me normally very long to make. A couple hours I can have this all finished and be able to put some first coat of polyurethane on it, or whatever finish I want on it. And this piece here might turn out to be a really nice one. But one thing I always tell people before I get off is be creative. Make sawdust, but be creative. Think outside the box, be yourself, but be different. God bless you guys. Merry Christmas, happy holidays, and look forward to seeing you again later. Thanks for watching the Dutchman's Wood Jack.